If you're trying to understand the coded language of the Bible, there's no better place to go than the very beginning. The first page, right on the front, Genesis 1. The first verse says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." I have established that God is humanity. The beginning of this book would say, "In the beginning, humanity created the heavens and the earth." Now, this is where everybody would lose their goddamn mind because you have an idea of what those words heaven and earth mean, but it doesn't mean that's what these people have in mind. And so I can show you on this that heaven and earth is not what you think. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, and that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. He called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. Then God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the second day. The firmament is heaven. The firmament. Now, if you ask any traditional Christian, or anybody really, they're going to tell you the firmament is the world we inhabit. Something like that. And if you're a Bible literalist, you're going to say that because of this little part of the Bible, when Noah's flood came, there was two bands of water. There was an upper band and a lower band. And so the earth was able to flood because you had a canopy. I believe they called it a canopy. That was some kind of atmospheric layer and a subterranean water belt underneath, and the two broke simultaneously, causing a inundation of water, literally. Now, here's what I've been saying about Christianity. They have all of the concepts without any of the thank you for saying those words. Don't take them literally, but they were able to maintain the visual for you. Now, water is like God. God means humanity. Water means knowledge. So there is a knowledge above and a knowledge below. And in between the two knowledges is a firmament. And the firmament, which is between the two knowledges, is heaven. So that must mean something deeper. But before that, God created the heavens and the earth. So it says the firmament is heaven. But let's kind of make this a little bit easier to visualize. There's actually three things you need to know. There's heaven, earth, the abyss, hell, Hades. Three things. Now, the firmament, or heaven, does not exist below the earth. It exists above the earth. This is important to understand everything. If you can understand this, it makes explaining many things very much more successful. Heaven is above. Earth, earthly, the earth is not below. It is the baseline. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form. Now, humanity is God. So humanity created two levels. At first, there was just the earth. There was just one level. And there was darkness hovering over the face of the waters. It's over the deep. It is not below. And then God said, let there be light. And then let there be darkness. Now, light they called day, and darkness they called night. Now, literally, you want to say the sun and the moon, and I'm saying no. It's amazing how much of the Bible you never even look at because 2,000 years is a long time to indoctrinate. So imagine light. I am the light of the world. Shine your light. Where does Jesus and good live? Good lives in the light. And where does evil and darkness and Satan and hell? They live in the darkness. So the very first thing that happens is you create a general sense of right and wrong. In the beginning, there was just people. There was a chaotic, formless, massive people. They hadn't formed countries. The first step was, this is right, this is wrong. Day one. The second step is there needed to be a firmament in the midst of the waters, in between the light and the darkness. Heaven exists between the two. The earth is formless and void and dark. The earth is darkness. There's light and there's darkness. So if there is already darkness, he didn't create the darkness. There already is the darkness. The light was created to separate the pre-existing darkness and formless chaos. From light. Good. Order. Something above the natural. What is, if at the beginning was nature? Earth is nature. Earth is baseline. It is neither good nor bad. A tiger eating a gazelle is not a moral thing. It is. Man existing on a plain, killing tigers and eating gazelle and fighting off his neighbors is neither good nor bad. It just is. It's what you do if you want to have the next group of people. So in the beginning was nature, was chaos, was darkness, was the earth. And then came something higher, a sense of right and wrong, a sense of good and evil. And who created it? God created it. There is nobody else. It's just humanity somehow said, this is better than this. The second thing they did is they created the firmament to separate the waters. Now there's two knowledges. There's the knowledge of the earth, and then there's the knowledge of heaven. You've created heaven and earth, light and dark, natural, unnatural. There is nothing natural about civilization, about higher order. Order is not natural. Chaos is natural. But there is even a third one that is not here yet, and that is below, right? So there's there's nature, earth, and then there's the abyss and heaven, hell and heaven, earth. Earth is neither good nor bad, good, bad. Then God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Let the waters under the heavens be gathered into one place. Again, there's two waters. We're not talking about the upper waters. We're talking about the lower waters. And they gathered them. So that is earthly knowledge, base level knowledge, lower level knowledge. And that common sense, common survival, cooking, making fire, that knowledge is gathered in one place. Where the water was not was dry land. Where the water was is called the sea. Now, earth with no knowledge, that's uncivilized. When you get multiple water sources coming together, when all the rivers empty, they empty into the sea. So literally, you want that to mean in the beginning, God separated something and created the continents, the actual physical land. But that's not what it's saying. It's saying the sea is going to represent waters, knowledge, civilizations, even low level civilizations that come together. That's called commerce. Sea is where the people gather together. Where they don't gather is the earth. And you will see as you read the Bible that means something. So when you create heaven, the thing above, and earth, the baseline, the most natural. Now, we live in an environment where that is considered a good thing. But in the classical world, there was an exaltation of the higher, of the divine, of culture, of like an additional level above the common vulgarity, right? You were to be elite meant that you had to set your mind higher. So you wouldn't be focused on earthly things. You were focused on heavenly things. Does not mean you were in another dimension. It meant that your mindset is the mindset of the part of God, of the part of humanity that is going to begin separating and creating, that is going to begin establishing order in a world of darkness and chaos. So the Savior, the greatness, the highest thing is order and civilization and culture. The other thing that you need to notice is that when he created the light, he separated the light from the darkness. There was already darkness. So now there's a new thing called day that there didn't used to be. So there was a world, but that world was darkness. Now this world is light and darkness, but they're separated. They're not together. There's order and chaos. And the light would, and you're going to have to follow all the days, but understand that the thing that brings order is separate from the thing that brings disorder. Because there was already disorder. And what was already disorderly? The earth. And what is the earth? The earth is common, natural. The average person is a disorder. The enlightened person is the light. It's the new creation helping to order the chaos. The earth represents the people. So anything that happens to or for and around the earth is around the people. And there's a separate thing from the average people as well. So there's the regular people and the elite, the enlightened people. So in 11, when it says, then God said, let the earth bring forth grass. The earth that's bringing forth is the common people. So grass is associated with the people. And you will see grass throughout the whole thing. The herb that yields seed and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth. Grass, herb, trees, fruit trees. These are all earthly. And the earth brought forth grass, the herb that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the third day. Then God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it was so. Then God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth and to rule over the day and over the night and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. So the three lights rule. And they are above. They are over the earth. And the earth is the common people. So over the common people are three lights. And the lights are not a group. The group above shines the lights, right? They have the light that guides the people. It gives the light, right? Without these three, sun, moon, and stars, you would just have dark chaos like you had at the beginning. And that is the role of the elites in this book, is it without a group of people with higher things, right? They are above. And if they're not providing the light, then you have darkness. The elites have the responsibility of creating the order. The rules for the creation of the order happens as a sun, right? The sun is what tells them the rules. And then the rules for the people is the moon. And then you have the ordering principles. Then God said, "Let the waters abound with an abundance of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmament of the heavens." So God created great sea creatures and every living thing that moves, with which the waters abounded according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good, and God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." So the evening and the morning were the fifth day. Now, something that's taken me a very long time to finally get is the phrase, "So the evening and the morning were the fourth day." I've been sitting on that one for years going, what does that mean from this metaphysical higher place, right? Not even from a literal place. It means what the Jewish people think, which is the day only doesn't start till the evening. So from the evening, does it say the evening and the morning were the fourth day? And I always thought, that's strange. From the evening to the morning is only the part that's dark, ironically. What I think it means is you have two separate groups. You have heaven and earth. You have the higher class and the lower class. And when you add them up, because you need the separation, right? Without the two waters, you would only have one water. So you have to have both light and dark, both firmament above and a firmament below, in order to make, right? This is telling you how civilization works. So evening and morning is both the moon, the people, and the ruling class. Together, they make the day, the whole thing. Because the day isn't just the part when the sun is up. The whole thing is both. When you only get one or the other, you will have, well, you will ultimately get into a sense of imbalance. So you have to have the way this works is you have to have a healthy balance of both. And notice up to this point, we only have two things. We have earth and what's above earth. And we haven't really been given much above that. And we haven't been given anything below earth until this one. It says, "Let the waters abound with an abundance of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmament of the heavens." So now we have two sets of creatures. We have creatures above and creatures below. Because if you think literally, if you have earth, if you have soil and dirt, above that is the air, but below that is anything else. So in the most practical application of that, water can never be above the earth. And a fish must swim below the earth. And if you think about where hell is and Hades, that is the underworld. And when you think about where heaven is, that is the upper world. notice when you gather the waters, that's called the sea. And I've been saying the sea and the creatures in the sea, that is a world of commerce. That is not a higher order thing. That is an earthly and even sub-earthly thing, but it's necessary. It's necessary, but it should not be, it's not considered above, it's considered below. Now the birds, when the birds fly, the birds are the higher creatures that fly in the air, right? So air is like, if Earth is the common people and waters are knowledge, and there's an upper knowledge and a lower knowledge, then you can go very far down on that lower knowledge. And to traverse that, you would need to be, it doesn't just say fish, it says great sea creatures. And sea creatures live in the sea. And the sea is where the rivers gather. But because of the gathering, it becomes salty. So it's not living water, it's dead water. So the sea is dead water, but it's still, so saltiness in the sea and the abyss and Hades, those are all sub-earth, subterranean, underworld. Higher birds. So in many ways, what I'm speaking to you, if you watched one of my older videos, which probably didn't, the secret language that used to be spoken was called the language of the birds. And if you understand what I'm telling you, you understand there's a higher order people that spoke in their own language, a coded language of higher things, which is what I'm showing you. And the Bible lays out many of the words. And if you're looking right, the problem I struggle with is that so many people have done so many earthly things, right? There is an earthly knowledge. So what you're basically talking about, like religion would be a moon, and we'll get into that later, but that's for the people. They're not privy to the sun. And what I'm telling you is the sun. It's the upper firmament, not the lower firmament. And that's why you don't go to church and hear this. It's because it's not for you. Then God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature according to its kind, cattle and creeping thing and beast of the earth, each according to its kind. And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth according to its kind, and cattle according to its kind, and everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. So the day before, we now have creatures operating in commerce, creatures operating in high culture. And now we have earthly creatures that are beginning to be formed. And these creatures are cattle, creeping things, and beasts of the earth. And they're separated according to their own kind. It begins to sound like a hierarchy, a pyramid structure of society. So cattle, what is a cattle? A cattle is farm animal. Animals are from the earth. Now, literally, you're taught that God created the birds and the fishes, and that if you want to get extra literal, then to breakdown of evolution, and these are actually the evolutionary cycles over millions of years in a simple story. I'm saying no. It's the evolution of a civilization. From the earliest steps, it's breaking down how a civilization gets more complex. So the cattle become the workers. And what does cattle provide? Cattle provides all the things you need: food, work, like the strength to do heavy things, milk, the materials of the ancient world, things like leather, bone. Like cattle was almost like a supermarket for the ancient world. It only served the purpose of need making, right? It's you grew cattle to get the things you needed. But for that you needed to supply it with fields and grass and straw and protection, right? You didn't want wild animals killing your cattle. So you took care of cattle. And I'm saying imagine cattle is actually a euphemism for the people, like the earth, right? So the earth people are broken up into three groups: workers, cattle, creeping things. Creeping things is not very appealing. They kind of hide in the dark, slither on the ground, go in and out of water to land. They're a little disgusting, but they serve a purpose. They feed on dead things. That's what creeping things do, right? What is death? Death is the underworld. What is the underworld? That would be commerce. So you have workers, merchants, which is like people of the earth that deal in money, and beasts of the earth. And beasts goes back to a previous video where the beast of the field was 100% like beast is always like the military, because the field was the battlefield. So the beast of the earth, the people that turn over the earth. And what turns the earth? Now you would think that just means like farm animals, but that's not necessarily what this means. This, I believe, is saying workers, merchants, and military. Those all come from the common people. Way down in the great sea creatures, that's your like super rich banker types, and your birds of the air, that is your priests and your higher learning people, like people that are focused on higher things, the overall, the things that the average person doesn't need to be worrying about. But the average person can become worried about money. Merchants, fighting, soldiers, working, workers. Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominance over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. And God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on earth. Now, man is the government. It's the organizing That's why when it says, let us, God said us, Elohim, blah, 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 council, or God means humanity. And humanity said, let us, the people, even the higher things. Remember, everything comes from the earth. There was only earth and darkness. So anything that is, even the light, came from God, came from humanity, came from the earth and the darkness. So there is only earth and darkness. Everything else is an illusion of man's creation. There's no such thing as like any order there is, we, humanity, created. And we created it by creating man, by creating governments in our. So we created a thing that controlled, that dominated, dominion over the merchants, over the priests, over the workers, over the soldiers, both the people and the culture, both the man and the woman, are ruled by the government. And humanity said, this is good. Be fruitful and multiply. Spread this idea everywhere. Do you know what the world looks like without governments, without organized nations? Yes, war is bad. Do you know what's worse? The chaos of no order. Yes, the killing of war can become industrialized and heinous, but the amount of things you must kill to survive without order is endless. Every day is a bloodbath in a disorderly, dark, earthly world. And God said, see, I've given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be for food. And also to every beast of the earth, and every bird of the air, and everything that creeps in the earth, in which there is life. I have given every green herb for food, and it was so. And God saw everything he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Now I could go into level, like I'm giving you most of it, but there's more and more. For example, why the first day, why the fifth day, why the sixth, like these are happening in order. And if you understand them, then ultimately I can go see what that means. Why is man on this sixth day? What does that mean? What does that mean? But we're not going to get into that. But what I want you to see is if you start with an uncivilized world, and if you imagine you're just like a group of 2 or 3 people living on some plain somewhere, surviving. And you can do that for a long time. We did that for a long time. But you can begin to see that once you begin to say things like, this is better than this, I'm in charge, and here's what we're going to do. Well, that sounds grotesque, and it can turn grotesque. It's interesting that all of civilization, except for like, I'd say 200 years, but that's not even fair. And really, it's less than 100 years out of all of the hundreds of years. It's always been understood that there's people that do. And that comes with a certain amount of power. But the reason you get that power is without that person, you don't get anything, right? If you only, and not to get into trouble, but if you go to places where they didn't have that, they didn't have that until they did. And once they did, it could be problematic, but without it, didn't exist at all. Now, you can argue from a naturalist point of view that maybe that's better, but we sitting here on our devices and our electricity with our air conditioning and our fat bellies and our extra food and our conveniences, like, none of that exists until a strong man or group makes that happen. So when you see the phrase, into everything in which there is life, there's death. And we just said death is the underworld. And death is actually below the common people. It is actually lower, is death. And that's a huge chunk why I'm going through all this, is I need you to understand life, death, heaven, earth, hell. Because everything is based on this. But there's also rules, right? There's a knowledge that's not for the people. There's a knowledge for the other people. And I think that knowledge said something like, being aggressive isn't the worst thing in the world. Being a conqueror, that's what life is. When you eat from the tree of life, you're not eating from the tree of death. You're not eating from wealth and richness. That is related to the harvest. You're eating, life is in green, growing things. Growing implies growing. Death implies harvesting. The growing is over. Now you're just rewarded from the growing season. So during the growing season, during the sun, during a certain portion of the life cycle of a civilization, you eat from the tree of life. You conquer. And you must do this. You must. My God is the God of the living, not the God of the dead. Jesus drinks from the living water. I say all this because it's hyper important to associate. Like, you have to, I don't know how you're going to do it. You probably don't care. If you want to understand what these people said, not what I'm saying, the living is the conquering. That's why when Samson, who is a metaphor of the sun, hairy, Esau is hairy. The sun's rays are hairy. The sun, he loses his power when he cuts his hair, when he no longer becomes a conqueror. So the conquering is a vital piece of this equation. Western civilization cannot conquer the world and thus bestow upon it all of the blessings of our Western civilization, whether you like them or not, every corner of the earth is now whining on their cell phones, with their electricity in their cars, with their air conditioning at their restaurants. But you don't get any of that until you get conquered to a degree and then get the benefits of that, right? So there's a portion of it where it's humiliating to the, if you're defeated, you lose your power and they project their power. But a more powerful thing can bring you more things. All of the Roman Empire was not conquered, but it was still growing. So sometimes you can voluntarily, like, all the growing is not necessarily violent, even though there is a huge violence in the concept. So when Jesus is of the living, and I'm telling you that's the growing portion, and then I say that all of Jesus is European history from 800 on till 100, 200 years ago. Well, that would be the growing portion of the European world. And then there's a place where that growing stops. You get a harvest. Then you have an expansion, because that's when you get the benefits of the you've sown your seeds, and now your seeds have matured, and then you have tribulation and a harvest, and you move on to the next stage of civilization. So Jesus, before he dies, lives, and he lives again. And all of this must be understood from the very first chapter of the Bible.